How can we make the world better? By making ourselves better. The Dr. Joe Show explores how you can make positive personal change by using his groundbreaking and highly effective I Am approach to understand who we are and why we do what we do. Your small changes can have big effects.
Join us now for the Dr. Joe Show with Mark Stiles of Stiles Law and your host, Dr. Joe Schrand.
Welcome to the Dr. Joe Show, man.
Whoa, that's prophetic. Very nice.
Respect,
there was a
Ma.
lot of Jamaican and Rastafari in there, Mark.
Yeah. So that's what we're talking about a little bit tonight. You saw the movie. I saw the movie. One Love.
One Love.
What'd you think?
I thought it was compelling. One of my favorite, maybe not favorite parts of it, but was the opening.
Yes.
For those folks who haven't seen it yet.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. The opening made the rest of the movie believable.
Right.
That's all I'm going to say is that opening gave the movie such credibility in terms of its historical accuracy that it allowed me to really just immerse myself in it and not wonder, oh, is this, artistic license? I mean, there probably was some artistic license, one would hope. But the opening, you'll see the opening and how it creates the foundation of trust, really.
Yes.
What did you think, Mark?
Exactly the same. I was so glad to have gotten there on time. I've been waiting for this movie to come out since the trailers hit over a year ago. Been a huge Bob Marley fan since somebody introduced Jammin' to me on my freshman bus to a basketball game.
So what year was that then, if you don't mind me asking?
83. So he had passed 2 years prior.
Yep.
Right. So there's no chance of getting to go and see him live.
Yep.
We're jamming. What you want? We're jamming.
So what was it back then that was so compelling for you?
So it was the music for sure. It hit me. It hit my soul. And then I dug deep into the catalog and it never stopped. So fast forward, I'm hustling around as best I can. As you know, I had knee surgery recently. So I'm, subject to Uber and Tuber. We like to refer to Timmy as Tuber to help Dad get around.
Timmy's driving?
Yeah. So timing is everything in life, isn't it?
That's amazing.
Surgery on Friday. He got his license on Monday.
That's great. Tuber.
So great.
Love it.
Tuber.
Yeah.
So, and I wanted him to see the movie also because I know the message that Bob would want to convey, which is the one love, the faith, the redemption, forgiveness, all of the goodness that comes in that culture. And I was hustling and I really wanted to get there early because we have an advertisement there at the movie theater now. And it's so early that for me, I was lucky to get there to see that cold open. So I saw some of the previews of the movies upcoming. Nothing that was necessarily moving me, right, to get me to go to the movie theater again. Wanted to see this one in the theater. And then boom, that cold open, it brought chills to me.
Yeah.
Because I've seen young Ziggy play a bunch of times in concert and completely validated. Because the same thing, you're sitting back and you're thinking, okay, who's profiteering on this movie? What's the goal? Is this a film industry mission of and it was, it was great. I believe, in my humble opinion, as the kids say, this is going to be the award sweeping movie, like 7, 8 awards, take them all. Best actor, best actress, best screenplay, best director, best music, best. And I could be wrong. I'm not voting in the Academy. However, where did it miss? The story was so great. And for those who are focused on cannabis and Rastafari, and that's, the stigma of reggae music, it's about weed smoking dummies. They're so wrong. And, I would suggest, really putting that aside. And I think they did a great job in the movie acknowledging cannabis as part of the religion and part of the spiritual enlightenment and awareness, yet they did not really focus on it. There was a few scenes, for reality purposes and all, but they didn't over dramatize it, which I want to believe that it was really the media overdoing it in the 80s and marketing it as something that it wasn't really anyhow, right? Because the interview, there's a point in the movie where, and I remember hearing about this, that one of the journalists asked him, I understand you smoke a pound of weed a day, so if you take that sound bite, and you pass that along and it gets into the wrong hands and then it spins into a community of talking, all of a sudden Bob Marley smokes a pound a day. And, his response was like, are you kidding? No. Yet then you see the work ethic, right? So they showed the scenes where they were putting songs together. I mean, I don't know if you saw the Beatles remake that they had. I think it was on Apple TV.
Haven't seen it yet. No.
Let It Be, I think it's called, maybe. Or no, it's what's the song that Aerosmith had covered of theirs? Come Back? Not Come Back. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Yeah,
really.
No.
That's okay.
No. Do you think our sponsors know what I'm talking about?
So before we bump over to the Beatles, I want to just stick with this for a bit. Why now, do you think? Was there a reason why
I hope so.
put this movie out now?
I hope so. It could not be better time to sending the messages of peace and love and forgiveness and hope and resilience and all of that with what's happening all around the world. I mean, it's a movie that if you go to be entertained and you let the movie wash upon you and accept all of it, you will feel really good coming out of that movie, and that you'll have that hope. And, did they time it? I mean, he died in 1981, and this is now 2024. Is there coincidences? It's right. It's simply the right time for this movie to be broadcasted and consumed.
Yeah. And I think part of both the hope, but also the sadness about why it's so timely is that it's universal. This idea that there are these huge political conflicts that affect people who have no reason to be affected other than they vote,
and that they're born
I think
where
that
they're
was
born.
part of the message is, these factions, these diverse groups of people can potentially come together. I think that was Marley's wish, was that there would be,
and he brought them together and put their hands together on stage. I mean, what a sight that must have been.
Yeah. And then what happened because of that, this forgiveness idea. I don't know whether they actually forgave each other, but there was the potential for it, right? The potential for it. That was...
It got the ball rolling for sure to the settling the disputes in Jamaica for sure.
Yeah. It's so interesting, isn't it? It doesn't matter where you are in the world. There are these factions, these groups that for some reason feel that the only way that they can increase their value is to decrease the value of somebody else.
The others.
Yeah. And then are astonished that they have rage and conflict that they have. So do you think that was part of his message in terms of, faith?
It's one love. Like, why would we spend a moment of our time fighting? Why? For what? It's about I and I, not me and you.
Yeah. And for me, that was part that really resonated, was really understanding his message. Because I had the good fortune of seeing Marley in concert,
Wow.
1979 at Harvard Stadium.
Wow.
Carol and I was basically the second summer that we were spending together. We just met a year before. And I remember being in line, waiting to get into Harvard Stadium. And then there was a remarkable piece to this, because while I was waiting in line, a friend of mine from Sarah Lawrence, I bumped into my friend who told me the very sad news that a mutual friend of ours had overdosed and died.
Oh, man.
I won't tell you his last name, but his first name was Ronnie. Okay. And he had been a good friend. And I was like totally totally stunned by this as I am walking into Harvard Stadium in this huge crowd of joy and happiness.
Yes.
As Bob Marley gets up, and I swear to God, I'm getting goosebumps remembering it. The first thing he said was about another musician, Ronnie Laws. And he said, I just want you to know that I've got a message from Ronnie for you,
Oh, boy.
that things are okay. It'll all be fine. And I'm with you.
Wow.
It was mind blowing, Mark. I'm telling you, the universe just
Well, so
was put
that's
it
the
there.
thing about this human being, right? Was he a prophet?
Yeah. That's certainly one of the questions. And do all prophets have to die so young?
Yes.
Yeah. But it's a different kind of prophet, right? It's a PH profit as opposed to what we hope some of our sponsors make in terms of their profit. So with that in mind, we'll take a commercial break. We'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show and talking about One Love.
Hey, folks, thank you for listening to the Dr. Joe Show. We've been investigating whether or not we want to bring sponsors into our podcast. What are your thoughts? Do you know somebody who might be a good partner with the Dr. Joe Show, who may want to align their product or service with the Dr. Joe Show? Think about it. And we're back, man. One love. Jah Rastafari. Respect, man.
Yeah.
So tell me about the show. So you went into a joyous event. Someone delivered you horrible news, and yet a sign was delivered from the stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, waiting in line, bumped into a person that I didn't know was going to go see the show, who gave me this news. And it literally happened like the day before. I mean, it was just stunning. Wonderful human being. Totally stunning. I have his jacket. Can't fit in it anymore, but we used to do this thing called Song Night at Sir Lawrence once a year, big event in our workshop theater. And Ronnie would always wear this, fancy white jacket, like a tux jacket, but white with black lapels. And he had given it to me. I don't know why. He gave it to me like the summer before or the year before to wear in the show. And I still have that jacket.
Very
But
cool.
yes, Mark, it was powerful.
What do you think about that sign, though? Yeah, so he was talking to everyone about a musician, but he was talking to you.
Yeah.
There's no coincidences there.
Right. No, it was just, like I say, I will never forget it. And it was 1979. And it was some of the first things that he said was a message from Ronnie.
Wow.
It's going to be okay. I still get teary thinking about
Everything is going to be all right.
it. Yeah.
Don't worry.
And back then in the 70s, there was a lot of conflict still in the world.
Yes.
I mean, Vietnam was sort of in the waning part of it, but there was still this huge conflict between just the different. It wasn't the same sort of political faction. It was a cultural.
So it was counterculture.
Yeah.
Wanting to be heard and government suppressing what counterculture wants to say.
Yeah. And that's part of what was happening in Jamaica as well.
Right.
Right. I mean, I was reading about this, that there was this thing, what was it called? It was called the 1978 Green Bay Massacre. Have you heard about that?
No.
So the Green Bay Massacre was a covert operation on the 5th of January, 1978, in which 5 Jamaica Labor Party supporters were shot dead after being lured into an ambush at the Green Bay firing range, but by members of the Jamaica Defense Force. So it was this political killing.
Right.
And that's part of what Marley was saying about. That was part of the violent culture at that point in Jamaica. And that is completely demonstrated and depicted in the movie. This sense of these gangs, but this politically charged violence. And it was a violent government. And that is certainly a concern that we still have today.
Well,
But we have,
it's who's right, right?
right,
Is it the government keeping order, or is it the uprising of the overthrowing of the coup?
right. But again, why do we have to overcome violence with violence? I
Mm,
mean, it's just mirror neurons at play. I mean,
exactly.
we're just going to do the same thing. I mean, Gandhi was very different. Look what happened to him. I mean, another remarkable human being saying we can have peace and unity, or as they say in One Love, einity,
Yeah.
because it's all I. But we're still going through the same thing over and over, Mark. I mean, haven't we learned
And it's
anything?
amazing to think about, right? So obviously, I was too young to realize what was going on in Jamaica, but I would bet to say that not a lot of Americans knew what was going on in Jamaica. And simply stated, there's a bunch of conflicts going on that we're not aware of. There's obviously two really major conflicts that are happening that we're made aware of on a regular basis, even though the messaging there kind of wanes in and out. What about all of the other conflicts that are happening all over the world that we don't know about?
Yeah.
What is the message? Does everybody need to be given a ticket to this movie to go in and watch this movie and say, you know what, there's a better way?
Yeah. What do you think that better way is? I mean, I got to tell you, part of maybe it's my narcissistic self, I must admit, but I'm in that movie thinking this guy has this message, one love. And we have a message here, Mark, on the IM that we all want the same thing, that there's no difference.
It's not narcissistic to think that way. You are on the same level, which is why when I walked out of that movie, the first person I texted was you. I said, you got to see this and we got to talk about this. So don't let that critic in your head say things about you that aren't true. You're
Well,
not a narcissist. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And that's why I said, it brought out the faith in me, so now I'm doing the Halo app, somebody at the same time, no signs, no coincidences. It is what it is, was recommended. Hey, this is something that we're doing for Lent, it's a Halo app. And now I'm, remembering my faith. I'm remembering and I'm getting into this more spiritual being and, Jah Rastafari, Jehovah's Witness, Baptists, it's all the same if you watch that movie, right?
I wrote a song years ago about this, was right during 9/11. I wrote it's all the same, just a different name.
Yes.
So I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, but that's where I think, we got lost, right? So, you have had COVID, right? And then as people started to come out of COVID and the shift that we dealt with there, people, me included, kind of forgot about the faith, left it. And this was an awakening, an eye-opening moment where it doesn't matter what the name of the faith is. Having that faith, that belief, that redemption, that forgiveness, that grounded presence, it's good for all. It's good for everyone. Whether, it doesn't matter what it is. It's one.
yeah.
I and I.
I have this phrase, this belief: faith is the enactment of trust.
Yes.
That's what faith is. It's I'm going to trust things. I'm going to believe in things, and that includes believing in you,
Right.
and having faith in you that you want what I want, and we don't need to compete about it. We can get this together by cooperating instead of competing. We both want the same thing. When we work together to get it, it's just reminding each other of value. That's all it is. I really believe that. I really believe that human beings have this capacity. It is genetic. It is bred into us over millennia that we want to be valued. The overlay of it is that, we have a group of people, and that group sometimes thinks that only people who are valuable are within my group, which then alienates everyone else. And that was absolutely what we saw in this movie, to the extent that there was violence between the two groups, murderous violence.
Right.
Not just words, but bullets.
And it's the scarcity that we've talked about, right? So what is the opposite of valuing somebody? It's scarcity. It's the disbelief in abundance.
Okay.
Right? There's not enough to go around. So
Right.
you're out. You're in the other group. So you're my enemy now.
Yep. Absolutely. It is that perception that there's scarcity.
Yet there's
Interesting
no
perception.
evidence that there's
Certainly.
scarcity.
No.
Because it's all perspective, right? It's like, it's because then it becomes the mongering and the I have to have it all.
Yeah.
And then you have the tyrannies and those types of situations where it's haves and have nots. And there's a small group that have and control. And that historically happens over and over and over again.
Yeah. And if it doesn't, we maybe malign it by saying it's socialism or communism. I mean, as opposed to just simply sharing. I mean, why put a political label on this? You know, I mean, if you're at home and somebody says, "Could you pass the mashed potatoes?" and you pass it and you share it, is that communism?
You know,
Is that
it's
socialism?
fun. So it's funny that we're going here.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of time to reflect with, the rehab and the inability to drive with my leg and everything. And so I think a lot about the future of work, right? You know, the master servant relationship, I've debunked that years ago. However, people are still status quo with the way things have been in the work, where you punch the clock, you work your 9 to 5, you do what you're told to do. The boss is the boss. You retire. Hopefully there's some retirement available and you die.
Yeah.
That seems so unappealing to most people that I know, and certainly is toxic to the younger generations. So what is work going to look like in the next 10 years? Like, what are the companies? How are they going to be structured so that the contributors feel valued? So the contributors are owners of the company and they have the upside. It's not all delivered to the top. It's not all pushed to the top. And it's a socialistic model. So I started jotting down notes, and it's like you could have these closely held companies that run like a socialist society. And at small scale works. I'm not saying a government could do it. I don't, I know that it keeps getting tried and people think that the utopia could work. And at a massive scale, it cracks, because of the same thing we're talking about. There's a few that are wielding the power and they say, look at these fools sharing down below. We're just going to skim off the top of everything and bring it up to our village of gold. And now that we have all the gold, we're going to force multiply. And now we're just going to wield power over these serfs or peasants or, whatever the term of the era is.
Well, I certainly don't want to, I don't want to recreate that, but we're still so in it, this master servant, the skimming. But we have cooperation as well. I mean, I would not call our sponsors our masters, nor us their servant. We cooperate. And by hearing from our sponsors, we get to stay on the air. So we'll be right back with this cooperative society and the Dr. Joe Show.
Hey, folks, welcome back. So any thoughts? Do you listen to other podcasts? Do you see how they do the sponsors? Is there a way that they're utilizing sponsors that you enjoy or you don't enjoy? I listen to SmartList, and I really enjoy how the co-hosts share the voiceover for the product or service. It's really funny for the most part, but it's unique. It's them really endorsing. Does that work? What do you think? And we're back with the Dr. Joe Show, talking about utopia, the future. Is it collaborative? Is it cooperative? Is it socialist?
Is it an itopia instead of a utopia, right? I mean, isn't that part of what, One Love is about? Is that it's not you and me, it's I.
I.
Remember we had Rabbi Ramesh Shapiro on a couple of years ago. Remember, he was talking about non-duality.
Yes.
That there isn't even a you and me. There isn't even a dualism. It's just non-duality. It's just together.
It's all connected.
Right. And again, getting back to the movie One Love, the fact that it's out now is interesting, but the fact that you needed your tuber to drive you there, because this is a whole new experience for you, Mark. I
Yes.
mean, I've never seen anyone move as fast as Mark, and do this and do that. I've got, and doing it all quality, not, superficially. And now you are forced by your biological domain to slow down. And now your IC domain is appreciating things at home in the social domain that perhaps you were moving too fast to see. Slow down. You move too fast. Beatles.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean,
I think I've been thinking a lot about it, buddy.
Yeah.
I have been reflecting a lot, and things happened for me, not to me. Immediately as I fell and had the Joe Theismann leg behind my back, holding my knee. The first thought was not getting on an airplane today.
Yeah.
Because that was the goal. I was going to a conference.
Because your Theismann was in a very different place than it was meant to be.
Yeah. So that's always interesting.
I mean, just describe, your leg was behind you, right? I mean, it was like, not where it's meant to be.
Yeah. So that when you rupture or tear your patellar tendon, it's the tendon that goes from your calf over your knee and connects to your shin. So if that lets go and rolls up like an Achilles tendon would roll up, it rolls up into your calf. It's not connected. Like your leg's not connected. So I moved it back into place. It's like moving a prosthetic leg, and it dropped into place. And I was like, well, maybe. And I'm like, no, I heard it pop, and I've heard it pop before. So I know what the pop sounds like. Yet the next, as the euphoria of shock is running through my body, it's like, okay, I'm not paralyzed. Super grateful. Everything's going to be fine. Someone, somewhere, somehow, some material, some energy is saying, slow down. You're moving too fast. Take a break. Otherwise, you're really going to hurt yourself. So slow down. I did. And
it's Simon and Garfunkel, right? It's not the Beatles. Isn't it Simon and Garfunkel?
Slow down.
Slow down. You move too fast. You got to make the morning last chance. Isn't that Simon?
Sounds like the Monkees. Is that the Monkees?
Well, maybe it is the Monkees. I don't know. We'll find out. I'll Google it. But yeah, so you are slowing down, and as a result,
it becomes very reflective.
Yeah,
very much super reflected. Was had a really cool morning routine going prior to this, where I was really diligent on, I need a morning routine. This is something I need to incorporate into my world, and I was introduced to the ice cold plunge. So the ice therapy, the ice or cold immersion therapy is what people are referring to it as. And I would hit that at 5:30 in the morning and pop up, and I would journal a little bit, and I'd read a little bit, and then the day would start. So that isn't available when, your leg is busted. I couldn't get into the thing. Like I tried to figure it out, trust me, because it was so effective. So now I have a different morning routine, and I'll come back to that. It'll be part of my routine, and I get to, because I'm going to heal, and I know the path forward, because I actually did the exact same thing to my other knee 7 years ago, which, for whatever strange reason it is, there's a higher probability than the average that you'll do the same injury to the other knee. And I can't really understand that, other than like how you fall or how, because the reason I land on these knees is because I'm upside down. I'm like in the air, and my mind goes to worst case scenario. If I land on my neck, I'm in big trouble. So I contort the whole body up and over, and it just pounded the whole impact. And it's almost identical to how I fell the last time. Different location, same exactly. And I was doing too many things then. You'd think I'd learn, right?
Well, it's not necessarily about learning. It's not changing your behavior, but it wasn't really your fault. I mean, it was a complete icy day. You're just doing what you usually do. The only
let me play this for you.
Okay.
To demystify what you're saying or debunk what you're saying a little bit. I took Athena to the dog park that day, and it was a really icy day. So if you remember our dog park, you come in and there's a big slab of cement as you first approach, and there's this wonderful dog park. So it was super icy. I was like a hockey rink. So tangible memory, right? Bring the tangibility to the memory. I put the rock salt down. I talking to someone on my way out and putting down the rock salt that they leave that's good for the dogs and everything. So that's one. So then I go to my P.O. box, and somebody's getting out of the post office and walks by their car and slides down the hill and says, "It's really greasy out here today," which I love that line. It's really greasy out here today. Be careful. And I'm like, okay. Two, not one warning, two warnings.
It sounds like a story from the New Testament. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So then, Papacito starts barking. So I'm doing 1,000 things. I got to get packed. I got to get going. I got to finish this call. I got to do this. I'm just going to leash him, and I'll just put him on the line. Everything changes, right? And you go from 150 miles an hour to 0.
Yeah.
And it's a mindset. I could have easily been like, oh, poor me, why me? I was blah, blah, me,
Sure.
blah, blah. And it was immediate. And I'm blessed that my mind went here, but I'm grateful for this. This is a moment that I'm going to now cherish. I'm going to use this time really wisely. I'm going to focus. I'm going to prioritize. I'm going to eliminate, subtract, and double down on, what I love doing.
Double down?
Double down. So eliminate some things and double down.
So how is that slowing down?
Well, if I eliminate enough.
Double down?
Good point.
I'm gonna do twice as much as I ever
I could always count on you
for can't walk.
Keeping it real. No, if I eliminate enough things that I'm not enjoying, I can have more time to, you win.
No, it's not a contest, Mark. We're cooperating with each other. That's what this is about.
You're right.
But I'm just curious, would you have gotten the same sort of joy, message, insight from One Love if you were sitting in the movie theater without needing to have your leg up because you can't walk on it?
Great question. And thankfully, the Hanover Theaters, who we have an advertisement sponsor, if you go early enough, has those lazy boy seats. So it actually worked out great. So I was in full on comfort and enjoyment. However, would it have moved me as much if I wasn't so aware and enlightened and reflective?
Yeah.
I think so. I do think so, because I remember when that trailer first hit over a year ago, and I remember circling the calendar. This is going to be something I need to see right away.
Yeah.
And it came out on Valentine's Day. I didn't go on Valentine's Day. I didn't have to go the night it showed, but the day after it was go time. And I do believe it's going to sweep the awards.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to catch on. I think there's probably a lot of people who are sitting back going, I'm not going to see that, what was the movie in the 50s when the weed first, talking about?
It was Madness, Reefer Madness.
Reefer Madness. I'm not going to see Cheech and Chong.
That was actually the 1930s.
Oh, really?
Madness. Yeah. No,
yeah.
I hope people aren't avoiding the movie because they think it's about,
I bet there are people who
idealizing weed.
I'll bet you there are people who are like, I'm not going to that Cheech and Chong movie.
Really, I hope not. But yeah, you're probably
But
right.
I think it will take time for other people to say, you got to see this movie.
Yeah.
Because it resonates for everyone. This is a message that it's like the I am. If you hear it, you will be affected by it. If you don't, well, you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know what you don't know.
You know how much I appreciate your endorsement of the I am and living it. I really do. I didn't have any thought that I was going to be creating something that could have the impact. I was just interested in the idea that let's stop looking at people as broken. we're doing the best we can, you know?
But isn't that also how Bob Marley started, right? He writes a nice love song, he writes another song. He had no idea the impact. And that's that muse that I was talking about before the show, like where did the I am come from? Why did you think of it the day you thought of it? Why did you stop and write this down? Where did that come from?
Yeah.
And I believe that's how he wrote a lot of his music, that he believes, and I've heard a lot of musicians say this, I didn't write that song. It came to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I absolutely believe that. I've had the blessing of writing songs in my youth, and it's something that just emerges. It just emerges. It's the same with most of my writing. I don't plan it. It just suddenly emerges. I'd like to think that it had some meaning, but remember, imposter syndrome begins with I am.
It's imposter phenomenon, remember. It's not a syndrome.
Yeah,
Didn't we learn that with one of our guests?
We did. Imposter phenomenon. Yep. Yeah. But, luckily not everybody poses as something great or something not so great. I mean, we do a lot of posing in our life. We pretend to be someone that we wish we were, or then annoyed at the people that we think we are. But what's great,
or worse, is we're hoping to be accepted, thinking that this is what people want us to do.
yes, that happens so much. And I know that this isn't about being accepted, but I know that our sponsors want us to take a break right now so that they can be heard. It's not just placating. We'll take a break. We'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show.
Hey, welcome back. And again, we're super grateful for you listening to the Dr. Joe Show. If you have anyone that you think might be a good sponsor, shoot us an email at drjoepodcast@gmail.com. DRJOE podcast@gmail.com. Give us your thoughts about the show too. We're wondering, are we talking to the trees, or are people really gaining value in this? Please let us know. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of the show. And we're back with the Dr. Joe Show with Dr. Joe.
And Mark Stiles of Stiles Law. So you actually have, how did you get a commercial before the movie? I didn't get there in time to see it. I was like stunned when you told me, but
it's not that hard. You pay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I did.
It's a contract.
I got a text from somebody who works at Riverside, who was there early enough. And he said, I just saw an ad for the Dr. Joe Show. So thank you, Mark.
Funny. So what we did is our call to action was to QR code an episode of the Dr. Joe Show where we interviewed Ben, the leader of our estate planning team. So we're marketing the estate planning practice, and I forgot that we did that. So I think it was QR here to listen to an episode of the critically acclaimed, internationally renowned Dr. Joe Show or something like that. I forgot that I cross-pollinated there. It's been fun. I haven't really heard many people because I think you really have to get there early. Talk about being proactive. I mean, you got to get there before the previews start, and there's like 10 minutes of previews. So, but we're there for those early birds. What a cool theater too. Whew.
Lovely theater. It is elegant. And the seats great. And you had to reserve your seats, right? So
which is cool.
Sitting. Yeah.
So I needed to, because I needed to be very strategic in where I was going to sit. Although
were you sitting in the front row or the row right behind the handicap section?
Behind the handicap.
That's
on the
where
aisle.
I got my seats too. Yeah, on the aisle. Right-hand side.
Seats.
Were you left
we sat in the same seat.
We sat in the same seats.
We did. That is hysterical. There's no coincidences in life.
No.
But I had my seat back the whole time, so it didn't really matter where I sat. Ultimately, like my leg wouldn't have gotten in the way.
Yeah, that's great. And the sound is fantastic. And that, of course, this is a movie where you need really good sound, where it just adds so much to the experience.
Agreed.
Because you're hearing this wonderful music. Wasn't it lovely at the end of the movie where they actually show some footage of Marley?
Yes.
And the dancing that he did, and how
I think
absolutely recreated that.
Every piece of that movie was done brilliantly.
Yeah.
From that cold opening all
Yeah.
the way. Like we sat there and Timmy didn't leave either. We sat there through all the credits watching those
Yeah.
clips from the 70s. And
Yeah.
yeah, great.
Uh, wouldn't it be lovely if we really could come together? Why not? But there's so many people who
Come
resist.
Together, by the way, that's the Beatles
Yeah, that's great.
documentary,
That was okay. Come together, good.
which is a great one too, by the way.
You got to watch that.
Yeah,
Yeah, see, everything comes around. It's great.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
why couldn't we be? Why couldn't we? If everybody sees this movie and everybody has this awareness and it has an effect on them, and it's weird to behave otherwise, and maybe it's the cynical nature of people, right? So it's like this protective device that they're putting up, like, I'm gonna be cynical before you can devalue me.
Yeah.
Or I'm not fully understanding what the masks and the costumes are that people put on, but if everybody could drop them, what a wonderful world this would be.
That's a nice one too. But what would we need? We would need that respect and value and trust. You're not going to drop your guard if you think that you're going to be seen as less than.
Right.
And that is the automatic thought that we've conditioned into ourselves now all along. I mean, I don't think our parents conditioned us to think that we were less than, but there were expectations that our parents all put on us, but then you get to school and all of a sudden you've gone from this environment of home where everything is familiar to a place in the social domain where nothing is familiar. And of
And the
course,
defensive mechanisms go up, and all of a
boom,
sudden everybody's
exactly.
guarded.
That's right. Exactly. You go limbic and you already have a 5-year-old brain that is mostly
Right.
limbic as it is. But once we know that, can't we now do something else? Can't we prepare our kids, each kid? I mean, imagine if every parent prepared their kid to say something nice about the first person that they meet. I mean, imagine if that was the culture where you go into a school that is, you've never met any of them, and you just, you say, wow, it's really nice to meet you. Or, yeah, I love that shirt.
I love that sweater.
Something where you learn that you can value each other, and you now have a class of people, a group of people doing that with each other, and that gets communicated.
Well, that becomes a movement, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what would be needed? A movement to present proof positive that you don't need to be guarded because nobody's coming after you.
Right.
So it's the chicken and the egg, though, right? Are you coming after me? I don't know. Am I? I don't know. Are you?
Right. But that's limbic. That is the precursor. There's no question. We can't deny it, and we don't want to ignore it. But now we want to get to the prefrontal cortex and think it through. Wait a second. I have no evidence to support this limbic response. This is a limbic response. It is impulsive. It is irrational. It's about survival, but I am not in any danger here. And so when I communicate that to somebody else, it means you're not in any danger either, right?
Unless they're reading it wrong, right?
It's the, it's in outsmarting anger, right? It's one of the 7 steps. Right. It's the first step after your own anger. The first step is to project peace. When I project peace, that activates your mirror neurons to feel peaceful, to not activate the limbic system. And it's not, you don't have to fake it. I mean, it's part of who we are as human beings. It's really much more simple than we realize. But there are all these overlays that we need to get through, the political stuff, the factionism, the group, the religiosity, where one religion says, hey, my God is the real God, not your God.
Right.
What's your God doing there? As if God would care. How many different names there are for the same thing. How cool is that? Anyway, you got me going on this because I really believe people should see this movie just like you told me to go see it. I so appreciate the suggestion. And it provides this platform of hope again, in a world where we really need it. We really need it. The thing is, with the I am approach, it's saying, let's not blame the world we have. Let's not do to that world that we have the same as it's doing to us, and just dismiss it and say it's less valuable. Let's understand why it's happening. Let's not just say, I don't want this because it's not valuable. See, this is where we learn. What is the lesson that we learn here from an evolutionary point of view, from a human point of view, from a social point of view? It's that we want the same thing. We've always wanted the same
And
thing.
yet people will project out that they don't, with that guarded nature, right? So you go into the situation knowing in your heart that this person simply wants to be valued, but yet they're projecting outward, don't value me.
It's
Don't you
really,
dare value me.
it's really interesting. You know what popped into my head as you're saying that is that response may be because we still have this concept of limited resource.
Yeah.
Value is not a limited resource. It is unlimited. So if I want to feel valued, it doesn't mean I'm going to antagonize you, that I'm going to be taking your value. That's what we've done, but there's no limit to value. It's not a limited resource.
Right. I can value everyone. I don't have to pick and choose who I'm going to value. And I don't have enough value in my tank to value you. So you're the one I'm not going to value.
Right. And you know what? If somebody does that to you, that's their I am. That's what the I am is for. It helps you step back and say, why is the only way that person feel valuable is to make me feel less valuable? What's going on with their I am? Because I am valuable. I'm at my I am, my
Right.
current maximum potential. So I'm curious. You had this idea during our break about interviewing Bob Marley and asking him the two questions. So I'm going to start. I'm going to interview you as Bob Marley, Mark, and I'm going to ask you. So, the I am has two truths based on the four domains, the home, the social, biological, and I seek as they interact. A small change can have a big effect. We went to see a movie in the social domain, which has had a big effect. So if you were Bob Marley, what small change could you recommend to our listeners based on the subject we're talking about tonight?
Oh, man. So easy. So easy, man. Love one another, man.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I'd say it's going to be all right. Just believe that it'll be all right. Have that faith. But I suppose I need to say it like this, man. Have that faith.
Yeah, man.
As there's faith, because
Faith
we
and love.
are here together, and let's forgive each other.
That sounded a little more Mexican than Jamaican, but
Sorry about that.
it's fine.
Yeah.
You're working through it.
Yeah.
But that is so important, right? Love and faith, and it requires trust. If I'm going to love you, I need to trust that it's okay to love you.
It's been
and I need to.
That's what it was, right? Respect is a value is a trust.
Yeah.
And remember, there was this one scene where he's playing music. He's a young kid. He's with his band, and he plays traditional music. And people who own the recording studio are not impressed. And then he does something that's him.
Yeah.
And that's what we have at each of us. Be you.
Yep.
Be you, because you are amazing. So small changes. Second truth, you control no one, you influence everyone. You get to choose the kind of influence you want to be. Do you think Bob Marley had a choice? Was there something that he wanted to do? What do you think, Mark, as Bob Marley?
I think he believes that he was brought here for a reason. And it was to be the message of peace, love, hope, faith. And I believe he did it for the short period that he was here. And now it's being relived once again through a whole separate group of people who can create a movement around that and eliminate the norm and the status quo of the limited resources and expose everyone to the hope and the faith and the love.
I think that would be how he wanted to influence, and he has. He's influenced the world with these wonderful lyrics, these wonderful. I heard his lyrics so differently this time than I did in 1979.
They're profound.
Just in a different, it's profound. A lot more to talk about. But Mark, thanks for a great conversation tonight. And Let's
Yeah,
let's do
man.
this again. Let's do this again.
Yeah, we'll see if the listener enjoys us riffing, and if they do, then
Yeah.
we can do that.
Yeah,
I'm
let us
okay
know.
with it.
Let us know on our Facebook page, the Dr. Joe Show, or you go to my website, drschran.com, or go to Mark's website and tell them there. Anyway,
Social media, all of it. Let us know you're
all of it.
listening. We'd love to hear from you.
That's great. Thanks, folks. See you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Stretch the kindness, brush with madness. Is it sadness or just a show? Then go, go.